The 2023-24 MLB offseason had a lot of stuff happening between trades, free agent signings, moves on and off the field. There's been a lot of stuff that has happened. However, we're going to try and shorten it down, give you a brief overview of some of the biggest, most important moves of the offseason right here. So let's not waste any time. My name is Derek. I'm here with Pat. You're watching Bleacher Brawls, and this is your 2023-24 MLB offseason review. First things first, I'll open it and just say we aren't going to be discussing necessarily Red Sox and Yankees moves, as the last 2 days we have posted offseason reviews for both of those teams there. So the Juan Soto trade, that'll be in the Yankees one, obviously. But we will talk about the MLB as a whole outside of those two teams really here. I'll hand it over to Pat first. I think the opening topic we have to discuss here is the Los Angeles Dodgers and the massive offseason that they had, but the two big moves being signing Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto for a combined over $1 billion. What are your thoughts on the Dodgers doing that and how it will affect potentially their 2024 team?
Well, those two guys and just about everybody else who's actually put pen to paper so far this offseason feels like, listen, they've set the bar for themselves very, very high. I don't think that they like those Mickey Mouse jokes about winning in 2020. If anything, I think you could argue it might have been more difficult to win in 2020. But regardless, they want a full 162. They want to win the whole thing. They've been a good team for years. Dave Roberts going into what I think is his 9th season, division titles every year, postseason every year, but hasn't quite gone the way that they wanted to. I mean, they lost to the Diamondbacks in this past postseason. Now that team goes on to play in the World Series. Is that a consolation prize? You decide. But they want to be doing the big thing. And so they've gone all in. They've signed the top two guys. Shohei, I think that they pay him like $5 a month or something. I think he makes like just above minimum wage, and it's just deferred the rest. They want to win. They want to win right now. They've kept that space open for other guys. Yamamoto being number one. He's been in camp the last couple days. Any self-respecting baseball fan has been on Twitter to see footage of Yamamoto pitching at Dodgers camp, and he looks good. So they've set the bar for themselves very, very high. Anything other than winning a World Series is not good enough for them, and that's serious stuff in a sport that is determined by inches.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the point of the 2020 World Series, people have been making jokes. Oh, the Mickey Mouse World Series, yada, 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 whatever, right? But this is a Dodgers team that they have been extremely close a lot of times. Lost in 2017 in the World Series, lost in 2018 in the World Series. In 2016, they lost in the NLCS too. 2019, they lost to the Nats in the divisional round, who ended up winning the World Series. In 2020, obviously they won in the COVID year. 2021, they lost. I'm trying to blank on 2021. I forget that year. 22, and then the last 2 years they've lost to a division rival in the NLDS.
The Braves in 20.
Yeah, they lost to the Braves. Yep,
yeah.
Exactly. And the Braves won the World Series. They had that little run there of either they won the World Series or they lost to who won the World Series from 2016 to 2021. So. They've been legitimately close for 10 years now almost. It's a little insane, but you make the two biggest moves of the offseason. It bolsters your team. Yamamoto, I'm extremely high on. I think he will be in Cy Young conversations this year. I think that's how good he was. We saw how good Senga was last year, and Yamamoto not only is 5-6 years younger than Senga, he's also was a lot better in Japan than Senga was. Yamamoto might be the best pitcher to ever come from Japan in terms of how good he was pitching in Japan. The 1.26 ERA he had, is it a little I don't know what the opposite bloated would be, but would it be a little bit is it lower than what it would be because of the dead ball in Japan? Sure. But if you put it on a scale with every other pitcher in Japan, no one else is close to him. So it's still elite regardless of whether you want to say dead ball or not. And I think for Yamamoto to make the jump to the big leagues, other guys we've seen have success, like Senga, for example, last year, he should be fine. And I'd argue he is the ace of the Dodgers rotation because you can't rely on Glass now. Buehler's injured. Kershaw's injured. They like it's well, yeah. Kershaw, Buehler, and Glasnow are all injured, and Ohtani can't pitch this year. Those are the four other guys who, if healthy, would make the rotation. Doesn't include Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, both who are also injured, and like guys who they brought in like James Paxton, and they still have a ton. Bobby Miller's one who's a lot of people are high on. So like the amount of moves they've made this offseason is kind of wacky, but they've also had, like I said, a lot of injuries, especially on the pitching side. I think the Dodgers have primed themselves to be the favorite, but with that comes a lot of pressure. They're going to have a big red X on their back. Moving on from the Dodgers, we kind of want to talk about some of the guys who are still left on the free agent market. Obviously, you look at the moves that the Dodgers made, they snatched up a lot of the guys available, but there are still some top guys available. Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Matt Chapman, and Cody Bellinger. What do they all have in common? They are Boras guys. Pat did share his thoughts on this on our podcast that came out yesterday. And that is something that you guys should go check out. Joey and John are also on that. Were there to share their thoughts. But I want to, Pat, just if you can kind of just gloss over a little bit your thoughts on the Boras situation and with his clients and free agency as a whole.
Yeah, so Scott Boras, sort of the most infamous of all sports agents, at the very least all baseball agents, has sort of made it his mission this year to stretch out his players' free agency as long as possible. He is of some belief that the farther it gets into pitchers and catchers reporting, spring training. I mean, guys, they play spring training games later this week. I mean, it's here. And he's got all these guys, the reigning Cy Young winner, a reigning World Series champion, comeback player of the year. These guys he needs, they need homes, but he has this sort of theory that the longer they wait, the more their market will increase. I don't know if I see the same correlation that he does, but he does this for a living and I don't. But what it has done is it has really, just screwed all of us up. These are guys who, on top of the fact that they don't know what team they're going to be playing for, there hasn't been a lot of chatter about them. For the first time ever, really, this offseason, we heard something about Matt Chapman yesterday in Seattle, which, sure, that would be a good place for him. They need a third baseman, but it's getting late, and there's been no chatter, no movement. They've essentially fallen off the face of the earth. And like I said, these are not random guys. These are not fringe players. These are not 4A guys. These are award winners and guys who have rings and stuff. So it's getting a little alarming, and it kind of seems to be that the owners at large, owners, GMs, front offices at large, have kind of just decided that they're not going to play ball, which is a pretty serious threat, I think, to the idea of free agency.
Yeah, it's interesting because Boras is also kind of waiting on a team to get desperate, but if no teams get desperate, although I would assume there are probably offers on the table that, if, it gets to a certain point, they could just take, like, the highest offer that's there. But at the same time, when does a team just pull an offer off the table and say, no, it's too late now, right? I don't know when that comes. But I don't know if anyone remembers, but Craig Kimbrell, when he was a free agent, they waited till June to sign with the Cubs because he had the qualifying offer. The Red Sox had extended the qualifying offer to him, and teams didn't want to give up a draft pick, so the Cubs waited till June until it expired so they could sign Kimbrell to the big deal that they did. And, Kimbrell got the deal he wanted in the end and whatnot, but he had to wait till June and then struggled the rest of that year because he waited till June, right? So it's interesting. I think for me, it's like, I get it, but it's also a little bit annoying because spring training has started. Spring training games start soon in a week. Like, actually not even a week, less than a week. So, spring training games are starting. Everyone's supposed to be on a roster now. Like, this is supposed to be the guys, right? And I think it also does a disservice. Boras is like, well, they should have put a deadline and whatnot because of the whatever reason he comes up with, right? Well, what about setting a deadline? Because a team signs a player. Now they also have to DFA someone or something, take them off of their roster, off their 40-man roster to make the spot. Then that player might have to go to a different team and whatnot. Now you get guys changing teams in spring training. It's, like, let's have this thing set and done before spring training starts. Like, it is a little bit outrageous. That's just how I view it. Because it's not just the guys who are signing, it's the guys who get affected by those guys' signings. Guys who might get DFA'd off and get taken off the 40-man or stuff like that. And if they have to change teams or whatnot, or they get released in spring training, like, that's not ideal for them at all. And I think those are also the players, too, that you have to kind of feel bad for, because someone signs Blake Snell, someone's getting DFA'd, unless they already have a 40-man spot open, which I doubt it at this point. They're trying to maximize their spot. So, I don't know. It's interesting. Obviously, could wait till the 60-day IL opens up, put someone on the 60-day to open a roster spot. But even then, it's still, now we're, into March now? It's a little bit stupid. Last but not least, though, let's move on to the managerial moves, because there were some. 8 teams have new managers this year. That's almost a third of the league. So I'll go back over to you, Pat. What are your thoughts on the managers? Which managerial hire do you like the most? Which one are you maybe not so excited about or not sure about? Just how do you feel about the managerial moves in general?
I would say overall I feel kind of sluggish about it. Maybe because I feel sluggish about this entire offseason. But I think the three big ones in my mind are Dusty Baker retires. This is a guy who came in and saved the Astros organization from any more humiliation than they had already suffered, and won a World Series with them, and is one of the winningest managers of all time. He's the man who invented the high five, for crying out loud. And he is going to go off to enjoy retirement. I would also mention Ron Washington going over to be the skipper for the Angels. Listen, that organization is pitiful, and I almost feel bad for him. But Wash, at the same time, he's been a long-respected coach. He's been with the Braves for the past couple of years, which seems to me like it would be a fantastic job. But it's sort of a tumultuous managerial career, and I think that he kind of feels like maybe he has something to prove. I don't know how many other people, feel that way about him, but it didn't go the way he wanted it to go in Texas, and I don't know if he believes he can be the person to steer this ship. Good for him. Unfortunately, that ship is the Titanic, so I don't know how well that's
and it has
go.
Anthony Rendon on board, who doesn't want to play. So
yeah, he's the skipper. He's the first mate, I think, and Mike Trout, who I don't know. We can talk about that in another video if you want. And then finally, Craig Counsell moving over to the Cubs, division rival, maybe the best manager the Brewers have ever had. Sort of kicks David Ross out, who was doing the best that he could with a pretty measly roster. And I think they're as competitive as they could have been. And it kind of seems like, they pay him more than anybody else. It kind of seems like this is going to be this massive move. And then they don't really do much this offseason, and it kind of just feels like he's going to be running the same team that David Ross was running. And if you're going to give him that roster, I don't really see the point. Obviously he's on a long-term deal. They don't need immediate change. But it all kind of feels lackluster to me. And all these moves that these teams are making seem that they will not be as influential as they want them to be.
Yeah, probably. I like the Guardians hiring Stephen Vogt. Obviously, Terry Francona stepping down. We wish him the best. It seems like it's a retirement, although it wasn't an official retirement, because he said it stepped down for health reasons. That's officially from MLB.com. Officially, it's health reasons. So, if it is retirement, great career for Francona, and we wish him well in his future endeavors. But I think Stephen Vogt is a really good option. This is a guy, I feel like if you talk to his teammates, they would all tell you when he was playing, like, yeah, he's a future manager. Or if you talk to, like, his coaches or whatnot, or his managers at the time, they'd be like, yeah, this guy's a future manager. He only retired 2 years ago, I think it was. So he hasn't been out of playing long. I think that can actually be a little bit of an advantage, especially a guy who was a catcher and whatnot. I think that's actually a little bit of an advantage that the Guardians get. But we'll see how they respond to him, because Francona has been one of the best managers in baseball for a long time now. So it is big shoes to fill for Vogt, but I think he can do it. The other thing I think is interesting that the Giants, they lose Gabe Kapler and then they go get Bob Melvin from the Padres, which I think is also interesting. The fact that Melvin is changing teams again. Goes from Oakland to the Padres, and now he's leaving because the A's started sucking, so he's leaving, and now the Padres, now they're not really spending money, which it's unfortunate because their owner did die. One of the owners did die. I think it was the older one. So that is unfortunate, but they're not spending money, so now he leaves and goes to the Giants. It's weird. I love the Giants in San Fran. It's near Oakland, so it's kind of not old stomping grounds, but like kind of close. If you want to say. So I do think that's interesting. But I don't know. A lot of these managerial moves are just kind of like, it's like, okay. It's like the Astros promote their bench coach. It's like okay. The Brewers promoted their bench coach. Although, fun fact, they named Ricky Weeks their associate manager. I thought that was cool. And it's like, and then the Cubs and Giants are just stealing people from their division rivals. And it's like the Mets take the Yankees bench coach, and it's like...
I will also say about Bob Melvin, this guy's had a consistent job for 20 years, and he kind of models NL West uniforms at this point, but doesn't really have anything to show for it other than Manager of the Year awards, which... I don't know, seems like the last thing a manager should be worried about. I'm not saying he's doing his job to win these awards, but that's all that he's got to this resume. And he's a well sought after, as we can see, guy who is, in my mind at least, I'm understanding that less and less, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. It's weird with managers because in one sense it's like, in one sense you look at it and you go, okay, like it's a manager and you maybe like the team, doesn't help, like being in Oakland, like that doesn't, I don't know if that necessarily helps you, but at the same time it's you need something more at some point to show for. I think it says something that he's been very wanted by teams, I guess, if that's the right wording. But he's been in a lot of like weird scenarios because he started off with the Mariners. First year wins 93 games, then his second year only wins 63, gets fired, then goes to the Diamondbacks. Was mediocre for the team. Was mediocre his first couple years. He wins 90 games in 07, then 82 in 08, then starts the year 12 and 17 in 09, and then gets fired. Then he goes to Oakland in 2011, gets hired mid-season, about 500. And then they win 90 games the next 2 years, then 88, and then they're down losing. And then in 2018-19, goes back over 90. After 2021, that's when Oakland had their fire sale. He leaves, goes to San Diego. Successful 22, rough 2023 in terms of their expectations, and now he's leaving to go to the Giants. I don't know. It's weird, but like you said, there aren't really any true accolades besides like Manager of the Year. There's no like World Series, which I know it's hard to win a World Series, but like at the same time, would you put him in that class of like, for example, Terry Francona? No, you wouldn't. And that's the thing. It's like, and even guys like Craig Counsell, like Counsell got a 5-year deal, $40 million, right? Melvin's probably not in his class either. I think there's, so I think it's weird, but it's always hard to judge managers too somewhat. Based on, because if they have a bad roster, the team's not going to be good, right? I think that's the tough part about it. Any final thoughts on the offseason before we wrap this thing up? Or are we all set to go? All right, we're all set to go. So yeah, make sure leave your thoughts in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on this offseason, moves that have happened, maybe the moves that didn't happen, or that you would have liked to have seen, or the moves that haven't happened yet, like, I don't know, Blake Snell or any of the Boras guys signing with someone. We'd like to know your thoughts on the offseason. Make sure to check out all our other links in the description. Tomorrow, our team profile series is starting, so that'll be a fun one. Kicking it off is the Oakland A's, so that'll be a fun one. So stay tuned for all 30 of our team profiles. And for Pat, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls, and we will see you next time.